Okay, so in today's video, I wanted to share with you 5 tips that I picked up over the years all about street photography. These 5 tips will elevate your photography to the next level. I have learned these tips from speaking to other street photographers, reading through many street photography books, looking at masters of photography like Alan Shala, Van Ho, breaking down photography framing, composition, lighting, contrast. The list goes on. So today I thought I'd share these with you to help you out. So let's jump in and take a look. Okay, so let's jump into the first tip. And the first tip is camera settings. Now I get this question a lot in the comments and on Instagram and even by email. It's camera settings. What are the best camera settings for street photography? Now it's a very broad subject. Street photography is a type of photography that I really love, and I think that it doesn't matter what type of photographer you are, whether you're landscape, whether you're architecture, whether you're doing sports, weddings, events, whatever it might be, street photography is a fantastic place to practice. There's so much going on and there's so many different things to take photos of. So if you're into buildings and architect, there are many buildings that you can go and take pictures of and play with the light and the shadow and the clouds and angles and different lenses and so on. If you like cars, for example, there are so many cars out there on the road that you could practice on as well. If you are an event photographer, a wedding photographer, the streets are perfect for you, because at events, at weddings, you don't know what's going to happen. You do not know where that person is going to look, where they're going to move to, who's going to get up from the chair, what's going to happen next. And that's what the streets are chaos. So if you can master and start predicting what's happening on the streets and capturing them with the correct settings so that you're getting sharp images, you'll be set for events and weddings and so on. So street photography is the perfect place to practice. Get out there, grab your camera and start shooting. So now when we talk about settings, camera settings, and when it comes to capturing people on the streets, there's a very broad sort of guideline to capture them in the correct way so that they are nice and sharp when you get your photos back to your laptop, back to your computer, onto your phone, wherever your editing suite might be. They need to be sharp, unless you are playing with sort of ghost-like movement sort of photography. Now we're going to park that to the side, and because 9 out of 10 times, 9.7, 8 out of 10 times, we want our photos to be sharp. Now from a focus perspective, you want to use continuous autofocus. That's continuous autofocus. This basically tells the camera to keep tracking the person or object as they walk through the frame. So you might have a person who's walking towards the frame. The camera will automatically pull focus. So right now, my camera is on video mode, but it's the same principle applies. I've set it to continuous autofocus so that if I move my head closer, I'm still in focus. The camera is tracking my movement and automatically adjusting focus for the frame. Now, if I move back, I'm still in focus, right? I haven't gone out of focus. I'm still going to be nice and sharp. So if I was in photo mode and I press the button, the camera is tracking my movement and the photo will be nice and sharp. So autofocus continuous is different to autofocus mode, autofocus single mode. So autofocus single mode, you might use that if you're doing car photography or if you're doing architecture photography and the building's obviously stationary, you're on your tripod, you've got your focus locked in and the subject is not moving. That's when you use single autofocus. The reason why you wouldn't use continuous autofocus in that mode, say a car or a bus or a lorry goes past, the camera might then shift its focus to that object, or a bird flies past the camera might shift its focus to that object. If you know you're taking something stationary, landscape, a church, a tree, and it's not moving, you want it in autofocus single mode and just focus on that object, and then it's just locked for the entirety of your process. And in street photography, people are obviously moving around, things are happening. So you need an autofocus mode, autofocus continuous, to adapt to your environment. Using the correct settings for your environment is really, really important. All digital cameras these days have these settings. You have to go into your camera and master its menu so that when things do happen, if you're a wedding photographer and you need to switch through your menu, you need to switch something up because your camera is not keeping up with what you're thinking, you need to know where to change that. Do not leave it to the last minute. I've been there. It's not fun. Now let's move on to shutter speed. Shutter speed, you want a shutter speed fast enough to freeze the motion. And I always like to start off on 2/50th of a second. 2/50th of a second freezes most people as they're walking past, but this does depend on how fast you are moving and how fast the person's moving. For example, if somebody is walking past your camera and you're stationary, 2/50th of a second will probably be fast enough to freeze the motion of that person. But if that person is running past, 2/50th of a second might not be fast enough to freeze the motion and make that person hinge sharp in your frame. Whenever you take a photo, golden rule, whenever you take a photo, doesn't matter what kind of photography you're doing, do a few test shots in your environment. Look at what you're trying to take a picture of, take a few test shots, zoom into them, and make sure they're nice and sharp. Make sure you get your settings. Once you've got your settings for that environment, for the lighting and the situation that you're in, you can then plug away. You can then hit that shutter button knowing that you've put the homework in, done that little bit of research, and that your photos are going to be sharp. The worst thing is if you do not do this test, you do not make sure that your photos are sharp, you do not make sure that your settings are correct, and then you go home and everything's just slightly off. I've been there, I've done that before, and I'm telling you from experience, just take a few test shots and then look at your photos and make sure they're nice and sharp. It will save you a lot of headache. Now, when it comes to aperture, you want to select an aperture that will look good for your environment and for your frame. For example, in a lot of my photography, I use aperture of around 4 to 6 because I want majority of things sharp in my frame. My photography style is a very minimalist photography style, as you can see on screen here. There's not too many elements in my frame, and each element that I select to be in my frame has a purpose. So I want people to be able to see each element and it interacts with the subject in that frame. Now, just because you've got a fantastic lens and the lens can go down to a 1.2 or a 1.4 or a 1.6 does not mean that you need to shoot at a low aperture. So if we're shooting a car, for example, and you use a super low aperture, the back end of the car might be out of focus. So you need to look at your environment, what you're trying to say, and allow that aperture to speak to your audience. You wouldn't take a photo of a building, for example, if you're an architectural photographer, on an f2. You would use something like an f10, an f16, because you want everything in focus. So have a real think about your environment and what you're trying to say. Get out there and practice. That is the best way that you will learn how to take better photos and become a better photographer. You do not learn at home how to swim. You do not learn at home how to ride a bike. You learn these things by actually going out and applying yourself again and again, time after time, day after day, week after week, year after year. That's when your photography will really, really improve. And obviously the last thing on our exposure triangle is ISO. And we always want to leave ISO till last. You always want to go shutter speed first, aperture, and then ISO. ISO is there just to bring up brightness in the frame if we need it. I leave my ISO on 100. And then if I'm in an environment where I need to pump it up a little bit to add balance to my frame, balance of light and contrast, then I'll pump it up just a little bit, just enough to capture the data so that when I get back to Lightroom I can manipulate the photo as much as I like because I've got all the data I need and Lightroom can see everything that I've captured for that frame. One of my top tips is to use the brightness histogram. The brightness histogram is a very, very underrated tool, and I always use it to make sure that I've captured all the data in my frame. And if you want a full breakdown on how to get sharp images with any camera at all, you can click on this video right here in this corner, and I'll also put a link in the description below. This video will show you exactly how to get sharp images with any camera. So in addition to all these settings that we've gone through your autofocus, we've gone through shutter, we've gone through aperture, and we've gone through ISO. What you should do is really get used to changing these settings really quickly when you're out in your environment. So you'll have a number of dials on your camera depending what camera you use. Canon, Sony, Pentax, Panasonic, whatever, Nikon, whatever it might be. You can go into your menu settings and set your dials to do a specific thing. So on my camera, I've got my front dial that does shutter, my back dial that does aperture, another back dial that does ISO, so I can then change those settings very, very quickly. The last thing, the most annoying thing is when you're out there on the streets or at an event or wherever it might be. This video is about street photography, so let's talk about the streets. Something happens before your eyes, you try to change your settings, you don't really know how to change your settings quick enough, and that moment has gone. That has kept me up at night many, many a time. So sometimes we need to accept imperfections. We need to accept the mistakes that we make. We might have selected the wrong shutter speed, the wrong aperture, and so on. And sometimes you find an amazing photo. See, when we make mistakes in life, in photography, whatever it might be, that's when we learn the most. Don't be hard on yourself because you missed that opportunity. Learn from it. Every grey cloud has a silver lining. And yeah, I know that's a really, really cheesy saying, but it is true. The reason why we fall is so that we can learn how to pick ourselves up again. And if we learn how to pick ourselves up again and again and again, falling does not become scary at all. Falling, in fact, becomes beautiful because we get stronger and we learn more. Our knowledge grows, we grow as a person, as a human being. So step outside your comfort zone, make mistakes, play around, and accept the imperfections of life. So the main thing is that your photo, your frame, your creative ability is telling a story. That is the most important thing. The settings are there to capture that moment in the environment that you're in that support the story. But the main thing is the story. Concentrate on the story, let the settings find themselves, and you will be in for a great surprise. The story is always the most important. Think about a movie, think about your favorite movies. Nowadays, we have movies like Marvel movies, action movies, and it's all about CGI and different tools and AI and so on, where, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was all about the story. If you ever seen a movie called Casablanca, an absolute gem of a film. Beautifully told, beautifully scripted, amazing actors, no CGI, no fancy stuff, just an amazing story. And it really, really did touch my heart. If you haven't seen it, then go out there and watch it. But my favorite movies are the ones that have a deep meaning. They stir up emotion. They tell somebody's story or a group of people's story in such a beautiful way that it sticks with you. I'm sure you've all seen movies like that and you all understand what I'm talking about. So don't worry so much about your camera, the lens, the settings, and everything else that comes with that crazy world, all the pressures. The story is always the most important. So sometimes in street photography, we shoot for different themes and different scenes. So you might see somebody on their mobile phone. and you capturing that person, or you might see somebody just looking out over a bridge, or you might see somebody walking across a walkway or under a sign, for example. We shoot for many different scenes. And other times you might shoot for patterns. You might be looking for visual lines, frames, repeating patterns, and so on. Check out my video series on visual patterns if you're interested in learning more about contrast, color theory, leading lines, patterns, framing, composition. It's all there. It's a 5-part series and I'm sure you will enjoy it. Also, it will be a link below this video for the full course. It's free, so help yourself. So other times you'll be shooting for a scene. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by scene? You might find a frame, a scene, a part of the environment that is really visually appealing to you for whatever reason. And you set yourself up, you get your composition, you get your framing, you get your settings, and then you're just waiting for somebody to walk past, run past, go past on their cycle, whatever it might be. You're waiting for that frame to develop, to add that human element. Now, when we add that human element to the viewer, it then becomes something that they can view into. There's something that comes familiar to them. That adding that human element is a very, very powerful tool in itself. So street photography is amazing for this because it's all about documenting humans as we move through the environment. And that's a type and a style of photography, or in my minimalist photography, that I've been fascinated by. The way humans, we as creatures, interact with our environment, especially how we interact with lights and shape through our environment, as you can see from the photos that I've put up on screen right now. So now when you're documenting a scene, when you found that frame in your environment and you want to capture it, there's a couple of elements that I want to share with you to hopefully help you get the most out of that scene. So the first thing that I want to mention and I want to bring up is working the scene. Now this is something that I see a lot of photographers skip, especially when it comes to my workshops. You see people going to a scene, they take one photo, maybe 2 photos, they're pretty happy with it, and then they just move on. Where you can stay with that frame. If you found a frame that sparked interest with you, then stay with it. Stay with it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, even longer if you got the patience. And you will see how the light changes in that small window of time. You'll see how people, different sorts of people, interact. You might see a group of people come through, you might see runners come through, cyclists, cars, dogs, all sorts. You can also change your settings to add a bit of motion blur, for example, or you can step into the frame and change your composition. You can move to a 45-degree angle to the left or to the right, or there might be some stairs or some kind of bridge that you could go up onto and shoot down into the scene. Stay with that frame, work the frame. You will learn so much more. This style of photography, minimalist style of photography that I do, is all about patience. Patience, patience, patience. You will learn so much more. This is not the run and gun style of photography. If that's the kind of photography you're into, then this channel is not for you. The Facebook group is not for you. My little courses and everything that I put out is not for you. This channel, my style of photography, you can go to my website and take a look if you want to have a look at my galleries, is all about patience, calmness, taking your time, using your intuition, tuning in with the energy of the city and the environment that you're in. Slow down, take a breath. We're always in a rush. Slow down, take a breath, and you will learn and take in so much more. Okay, so then set up your shot. Wait for the right moment. Be patient and wait for the right character to come along. You can see in this little video here where I'm taking a photo of a certain scene, I had the picture of what I wanted in my mind already. I've found a frame, I've adjusted my settings, I've taken some test shots, and a few people have walked past in black outfits, and it didn't really balance. I wanted somebody walking from the left of the frame through to the right of the frame, and I wanted them to be wearing lighter colors. Now, I could have just got away with taking one photo and shooting off, and yeah, it would have been okay. But I waited and I was persistent, and there you have it. Somebody came along at the perfect time. They came along wearing the perfect clothes, and they came along and they walked through the perfect part of the frame that I wanted to capture them in. I had my settings, I hit the shutter button, and bang, I got a beautiful photo. I've printed this up, it's on sale on my website, and it's doing well. Other people agree. Sometimes you might have to wait a lot longer, and I have done that. I've waited sometimes 30, 35 minutes, 45 minutes at a scene. It's all about patience. It's totally okay to wait a long time to get what you want. Have the vision in your mind already. Have the vision of what you want to happen in your mind before it actually happens. And I tell you what, the longer you're at a scene, the longer it takes to catch that photo, the more pleasure it will bring you. It's almost like we're out fishing, and if you just go out there and you throw out your line, your bait, and you get a fish straight away, yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. Yes. But the longer you wait for that bite to happen, it builds up that anticipation. And when it does, the adrenaline, the pleasure, everything about it is amplified way more. The best things come to those who wait. So also shoot in any condition. Don't let the weather put you off. Street photography is a category of photography that is just open and so broad. We can use our creative imagination. There's no roof to our creativity. The sky's the limit, the universe limit. I mean, there is no limit. We can shoot in nighttime. We can shoot in daytime. We can shoot in stormy weathers. We can shoot in the rain. We can shoot in all conditions, and you will learn so much more about yourself, about your camera, your style of photography if you do this. Don't let the weather put you off. Get out there and take photos. I go back to my previous point. The best thing you can do is to grab your camera and get out there and take photos. That's when you will learn the most. Even sitting here and listening to me, yes, you're going to pick up some skills, fantastic, but nothing beats getting out there and taking photos. Because street photography is all about capturing humans interacting with their environment, light, weather is very, very important to this. For example, umbrellas out on a rainy day, or the harsh shadow difference between shadow and light on a really sunny summer's day, or the softness of the light as the sun rises, or the blueness of our environment, our streets during blue hour. Blue hour is when the sun has gone down and there's an hour where everything has a blue tone to it. If you haven't seen this, go out there and experience it for yourself. It's a beautiful time. We have golden hour, that's the hour that the sun is going down, and then the following hour once the sun is set, that is blue hour before it gets dark. So don't be afraid to shoot in any weather conditions or at any time of day when it comes to street photography, because you just never know what kind of photo, what you're going to find. I mean, some of my favorite images and some of my photographers' favorite photos, most famous photos, have been shot in conditions that a lot of people wouldn't consider are ideal conditions. But you just go out there and sometimes all of the elements just align and you hit your shutter button at that right time and you come back with an amazing photo. That's one other thing that I love about street photography, is that we are capturing moments in time that can never be recreated. Every time you go out there, it's so individual what's happening. It's fascinating to me that those moments in time can never ever be recreated. Doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter if you go back with the best equipment and the same people, you will never be able to recreate that frame that you've taken a picture of. So every time you hit your shutter button, it's a totally original photo. It's a totally new experience. It's a totally new and individual original piece of art that you're creating. Fascinating stuff. So the last little tip that I've already kind of touched base on a couple of times through this video is to go out there and shoot as often as you can. So if you find that you can't find time to dedicate to photography, maybe you can do half an hour before work, or maybe you can do half an hour on your lunch break, or maybe you can do an hour on the way back from work. Take your camera with you, or maybe you're on the train to work, or you're a passenger in the driver's seat, or on a bus, or you're walking. You can still do photography in these times, in these down times that we're just traveling along. Use photography as a tool. Use photography as a meditation. Use photography as a way to tell stories of your environment. Don't make an excuse and say, I haven't got time. Put the hours in each day, each week, and that's when you will really see a vast improvement in your photography skills. Patterns, shapes, and so on. Go out there and try them all. Look at photography books. That's another amazing tip. Sometimes when I get stuck with my photography or I lack creativity, something's just not flowing for me, I go into a bookstore, I grab some photography books and I just take a look, and straight away I just get inspired. Just sitting 15-20 minutes with a photography book is a beautifully creative experience for myself. I would highly advise you to get some photography books for yourself, get them at home, have a cup of tea, a beverage, or whatever your drink is of your choice. Sit down and just take it in. Going through a photography book, feeling the pages turn, and looking at them on paper is a totally different experience to looking at it on your mobile phone. Your mobile phone, you're going to get pop-ups of messages, you're going to get Instagram this and email this and people ringing and so on. There's so many distractions. Put your phone to the side, grab a good photography book. I will link some in the description below. Sit with it, flick through it, do it the old school way, and that photography, that style, that creativity, leading lines, framing, color balance, contrast, and so on will all start to sink in much better. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this video up there. I hope those tips were very, very helpful for you. If you got any other tips or any other comments, leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Also, if you're enjoying this channel and you like what it's about, minimalist photography, check out my website and check out my workshops. Also, if you're enjoying the channel, this channel is all about minimalist photography, you can consider buying me a coffee. I'm putting out these videos for free. I'm putting out courses and all this information for free to help you guys and to try and build a minimalist photography community so that we can get together, we can upskill, we can share, we can learn, we can go on photography workshops in Barcelona, Madrid, London, and so on. So to support the channel, to support myself in putting out all this information and putting these workshops and guides together, you can consider buying me a coffee. There's a link below in the description. I'd be really, really helpful to keep this channel going. Okay, until the next time, get out there and take those photos.